So today we're going to look at the general principle. The general principle is already in verse 1. And it says, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you'll have no reward from your Father in heaven." And this theme is picked up through the first section on giving, the second section on prayer, the third section on fasting. Same theme throughout. The first thing that just jumps out at you here is the assumption that we are all engaged, that we're all on board and we're all practicing. What are we practicing? We're practicing the big three. Yes, we're practicing the big three acts of righteousness, of giving to the needy and prayer and fasting. And I would also have no problem adding, and all the other smaller acts of righteousness that exist, for there are many. How could we be members or citizens of the kingdom of heaven if we did not practice these acts of righteousness? How could we claim to be Christians and not give? How could we claim to be Christians and not pray? How could we claim to be Christians and not fast or sacrifice? How does that work? The answer is, it doesn't. Jesus assumes that you and I are not spectators in the stands, but we are avid participants on the playing field of Christian living, that we are all involved, that we're all engaged, that we're all on board. We're in there like a clean shirt. That's the Christian version of that saying. Not a dirty shirt, clean shirt. To practice your acts of righteousness means it is your lifestyle. You're not hiding it, you're not ignoring it, you're not sitting on it, you're not storing your righteousness in the top drawer of your dresser, you're not putting your righteousness behind a protective cover so that it doesn't get dirty, you're not tucking it away in a safety deposit box for safekeeping. You're practicing. You're praying here, you're giving there, you're sacrificing, you're fasting. You're constantly on the prowl, a righteous deed to perform. I love that. You're constantly on the prowl, a righteous deed to perform. And when you pounce, random acts of kindness, random acts of righteousness that are serendipitous righteousness, one-of situations, it's there, a one-of. You're there. Regular acts of righteousness, like the weekly things, the daily things, the monthly things. Individual acts of righteousness where you're on your own. Or group acts of righteousness where you're working with others. The Bible says that's exactly what has been prepared for us to do, and it's exactly what God intends for us to do. Righteous acts. Last Sunday we talked about some big concepts of justification, sanctification, and the thing is, the purpose for justification and the purpose for sanctification is that we would be prepared for every good work. That's what Paul said. And without righteousness, James said our faith would look dead. Without without practical righteous acts, James says our faith would really appear, and probably really be dead. And Matthew said that righteous works bring God glory. Our New Christians class last Tuesday, we read about a church in Alaska that was hosting missionaries, and it was such a cool story. I wanted to share it with you. They were hosting missionaries in their homes who would live with them for a little while as they would tour the churches in the area. And this one family, just before their missionary arrived, a flu bug arrived. Just before. And not only was the host down for the count with the flu, the whole family was sick as can be. And before any alternate arrangements could be made, the knock comes on the door, and the father was the only one who could kind of more or less stagger to the door, open it, explain the situation to the missionary, and suggest it would be better if the missionary go stay with somebody else. The missionary looked at the man and got real serious. Not for himself, but out of concern for the family. And he walked straight into that house, and he says, "I'm not leaving. You need me here. You need me." And to their amazement, the missionary put down his luggage, took off his coat, rolled up his sleeves, and began to wash the dishes. Then got the vacuum out and vacuumed the house. And then he made them supper. He was engaged. He was involved. He was participating in an act of righteousness. And so this is the assumption that is made in verse 1